Tonight, these stunning images from inside a New Orleans jail cell where 10 inmates, some charged with murder, escaped, sparking an urgent citywide manhunt. The toilet dislodged from a cell wall, exposing an opening. Scrawled on the wall above, "We innocent and too easy," with an arrow toward the hole where they escaped, out of view of the officer on duty. Authorities say it happened just after midnight when the inmates broke a lock on a cell door.
Hello, how are you? My name is Lerone Kuntz. I'm a former correction officer, and I just have to talk about this escape that happened in New Orleans, where 10 inmates escaped from a correctional facility. Now, as a correction officer, I am offended by this escape. This bothers me. It makes correction look bad. And I've never heard of such a thing, right? I've been in the business for 2 decades, and I've never heard of 10 inmates escaping at the same time. I was thinking about how to describe this jail system, and I came across the word dysfunctional. And I said to myself, the level of dysfunctionality is astounding, right? And I'm saying, is there such a word as dysfunctionality? Am I inventing a word here for this jail system? And no, I looked it up. There is a word called dysfunctionality. It refers to a state of impaired or abnormal functioning, often used to describe relationships, families, or systems that do not operate normally or beneficially. And that is exactly what's going on in New Orleans with their correctional system. And I'm just going to point out a few things that are not normal, that don't happen in corrections, or is not supposed to happen in corrections. First of all, they say this escape happened around 12:30 p.m. Okay? Lock-in time is around 11 o'clock, right? If you have inmates in a cell block, inmates lock in around 11 p.m. in most facilities, sometimes 10 at some facilities. But I've never heard of a facility that has cell blocks, that the inmates are still walking around at 12:30. Okay? I've seen footage where the inmates are pulling on doors and walking around, and it's 12 o'clock at night. That is not supposed to happen. The second thing that is troubling is that no officer was assigned to the cell block. How do you have a cell block and no officer assigned to it? They said that, from what I've been able to understand, they had an officer that's looking at a monitor from a camera that's in the housing area. There's not an officer in the housing area. There's just a camera there, and then you have an officer that's probably in another room someplace in the facility monitoring these feeds, looking at TV screens. This is what substitutes as a correction officer. Technology. They put a camera in and say, hey, we don't need a correction officer. This is crazy. This is not supposed to happen in correction. The third thing that is preposterous is that these inmates were sentenced. 10 inmates, sentenced inmates. No correction officer on post. The cells are open. Inmates are still walking around, 12 o'clock at night. 7 of these inmates have been convicted of murder. So in our system, in correctional systems, these inmates are called state-ready inmates, or inmates that are supposed to be transferred from a jail to a prison, right? These are no longer detainees. Detainees are held in the jail until their case is adjudicated. So technically, inmates that are detainees are innocent until proven guilty, all right? And these inmates have already been proven guilty and been sentenced. So these are the most dangerous inmates in your facility. Like I said, 7 of them have been convicted of murder. How you can have a housing area without an officer, it's not supposed to ever happen. How are you going to have a housing area where you have inmates walking around at 12 o'clock at night in a cell area? Maybe if they're in a dorm, but you wouldn't have these types of inmates, these dangerous types of inmates that may want to escape because they got sentenced and they're waiting to go to prison. You wouldn't have them in a dorm. You would have them in a cell area and they would be locked in by 11 o'clock, right? This should not happen. Another thing that should not happen is that you have these inmates on the ground floor. The only reason why you would have inmates that are state ready or inmates that have been convicted of murders on the ground floor is if you have a 1-story building. I don't think this was a 1-story building from what I'm hearing. So you're supposed to have these inmates on the 3rd or 4th or the 5th floor just to deter them from trying to escape. Simple as that. You don't have them on the ground floor. That's another thing that's wrong here. The 4th thing that's wrong, I think I'm up to 4 or 5. The next thing that is wrong is that they say that the officer who's monitoring the cameras left his post to go get food. Now, jails run on a schedule. They run on shifts. You have your day shift, which is usually 7 a.m. to 3 in the afternoon. You have your afternoon shift, which is 3 o'clock to 11. And you have your midnight shift, which is about 11 o'clock p.m. to 7 in the morning. So you have the 7 to 3, 3 to 11, and 11 to 7 tours, right? So officers that are coming to work, they're basically on those shifts. Now, some jails may do it 11:30, some may do it 12 o'clock, 12 to 8. It's in that range, okay? So let's just say the officer that's monitoring the cameras came in at 11 o'clock, right? They say he went for food at around 12. Why is someone who just came in at 11 o'clock going to get something to eat at 12? The meal period doesn't start until like 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours into your tour. So he would be going to meal at 2:30, 3 o'clock at the earliest. Why is he going to meal at 12 o'clock and he just got there at 11, right? That doesn't make any sense to a correction officer. Another thing that doesn't make any sense is that if you do have to go out for whatever reason and your job is to monitor the camera feeds and there's no officer in the housing area and you're like the last line of defense to make sure that inmates are not tearing the place up, you get a relief before you go anywhere. You're supposed to have someone come and fill in for you while you go to the bathroom or go to meal or go eat or whatever. That didn't happen. The guy just got up and walked out and just left the cameras unattended. That is not supposed to happen. The other thing that's not supposed to happen, they say that they arrested a maintenance worker and he is supposed to be an accomplice and he's the one that cut the water off in the cell, which allowed the inmates to take the pipes apart and go out. Now, why at midnight do you have a maintenance worker in the cell area for any reason, unescorted, with no one in the housing area? And if there's no one in the housing area with the inmates, who let the civilian in? The civilian says, I guess he's a maintenance worker, plumber or something. He's in the building. He's called to the area because he says that there was a report that the toilet was clogged. The toilet was clogged. And he said he spoke to an officer and he went in, but there was no work order associated with this clogged toilet. Now, if It's 12 o'clock at night and the toilet's clogged. We're not dealing with this until the morning. So I'm not calling the maintenance person up to the floor because of a clogged toilet on the midnight shift. And why is there a maintenance guy roaming the building at 12 o'clock at night anyway? If you don't have enough money to hire officers to work the housing areas, how do you have money in the system to hire a maintenance person to be there at 12 o'clock at night? I don't understand that. So there's so many things that are wrong with this scenario from a correctional point of view. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for me as a correctional officer or a former correction officer to hear this story. It makes us look crazy. And the people that are in charge, they should resign. You know, they're coming out with their Class A uniforms. You know, they have all these stars and bars on their collars and things like that. They should be ashamed to show their faces. I'm gonna be honest with you. The person who's in charge, I guess, is the sheriff. I hope that she doesn't run for re-election because she shouldn't be elected to any type of law enforcement position if she's running her jail like this. And now they're trying to scramble around and find out what went wrong. What went wrong is that your jail is dysfunctional. The level of dysfunctionality is obscene. So hopefully they'll catch all these people that escaped. They said that out of the 10 that left, that escaped, they said 5 of them have been caught. So I'm sure they're going to catch the other 5. It's just going to take some time. Usually when an inmate escapes, he doesn't have any money. He doesn't have a getaway car. He doesn't have somebody that's going to give him thousands of dollars to go on the lam and evade police. Usually he's going back home. He's going to the place that's on his paperwork when he gets booked in. That address is probably where he's going back home to because he doesn't have any money, he doesn't have any clothes or anything like that. So he's going back to the old neighborhood and he's going to try to get help there. And that's where law enforcement is going to be waiting for him. They're going to be staked out around that area. And when he comes and when he, comes around, they're going to arrest him. Or somebody within his circle of friends are going to turn him in because now the reward is $20,000. So most people will turn you in for $20,000 if they know that you're there in the neighborhood. They're going to turn you in. So eventually all 10 of them will be caught. And of course, escape is a felony and you can get 7 years for escape. But I guess these guys don't care because they've already been sentenced for murder. So they're not going home anyway. So they figure, hey, if I can get away, I'll get away. But just the level of incompetence is astounding. This is something that is system-wide. You can't pin this on one person, one officer or supervisor. This is something that's probably been going on for a while. And in correction, you do find dysfunctionality in the systems. And usually things like this don't happen. And we have a saying that it's all good until it's not. You can do something wrong 1,000,000 times and if nothing happens, it's all good. But the one time you do something wrong and something wrong happens, you got a lot of problems. And these people, they have a lot of problems. They have a lot of explaining to do. God forbid if one of these inmates hurts somebody while they're out there, this department is going to have a crazy lawsuit on their hands because the whole system is out of control. I mean, I can go on for a half an hour or more about things that are glaringly wrong with this jail system and the circumstances surrounding this escape. But I think you get the point. This is not supposed to happen in correction. I'm embarrassed by this. And I don't even work there. So I'm going to probably have to do another video about this to get this all off my chest. But for now, thank you for stopping in and checking me out. And until next time, as always, peace and stay safe.